Well, I had a feeling that the title might have brought y'all in today, or maybe I'd be speaking to those very few brave souls who were undaunted by today's sermon topic. Or maybe you just now sat down and noticed the title and you're looking for the closest exit. There are two in the rear, two up here on the side. My suggestion, though, is you just buckle your seatbelt and stay seated. The fact is, though, that you can't escape the issue of sex in the church, really. All over the news this week has been the intersection of sex and politics in the church. There have been stories about Governor Sanford of South Carolina and his very public affair, where he referred to the woman with whom he had an affair as his soulmate. Another story this week, which may have not been as visible, is the background behind the affair of Senator Ensign from the state of Nevada. Senator Ensign lives in a voluntary Christian enclave called the Family. He lives there along with our very own Senator Tom Coburn. It is a Christian fellowship home in Washington, D.C., where Ensign and several other powerful Washington figures live in order to help them reinforce their conservative Christian values, to help hold themselves accountable to a higher moral standard. It's not working. So following Ensign's affair, Senator Coburn and the family made Ensign write a letter to end the affair. And then he didn't trust him to mail it. So the family accompanied him to the FedEx office after he'd crafted the letter to watch him mail it. Ensign apparently snuck away after mailing it and called the woman with whom he was having the affair and told her that they had forced him to write it and that the contents of the letter were not true. Then, so funny, I couldn't write this stuff. Then Tom Coburn told Ensign that such matters required financial consequences and told Ensign that his aide and the family needed to be given financial assistance in the millions of dollars to pay off their $1 million plus mortgage and then move them to a new life far away from Washington, D.C. So Ensign did what most of us may have done in the past. He asked his parents for the money in installments of $12,000 each year so that it would not be taxable. I'm serious. Can you believe this man? It is important to note that Governor Sanford and Senator Ensign were both receiving marital counseling from this conservative Christian group called the Family. I just think about what I would say to them if they came into my office for marital counseling, but okay. Reverend Deborah Hafner, a colleague of mine and also the director of the Religious Institute on Sexual Morality, Justice, and Healing, recently proposed that every new elected official, every new elected politician, be required to come to the Religious Institute for a 2-day sexuality education program. On the first day, she suggested, we'd cover the science that they need to know as policymakers: maternal and child health, contraception, HIV/AIDS, sexuality education, sexual orientation, gender identity, and stem cells. There's lots of sexual science for policymakers to know so that they can make informed decisions in these areas. And on the second day, Reverend Hafner continued, she'd adapt her course for seminarians and clergy called Sexual Attraction and Boundaries. She'd give them the opportunity to examine their own values and commitments and talk about the characteristics of a sexually healthy adult. She would be sure to tell them that a sexually healthy adult distinguishes between sexual behaviors that are life-enhancing and those that might be destructive to self and others. And, she says, I'd tell them that although great sex is one of the most wonderful blessings, it is never, I repeat, never, worth losing your family, career, reputation, or elected office over. Now, like Reverend Hafner, I believe that most adults, not just politicians, could benefit from factual sexual education and an exploration of what it means to be a healthy sexual adult. According to the Religious Institute on Sexual Morality, Justice, and Healing, sexuality education is a lifelong process. It's a process of acquiring information and forming attitudes and beliefs and values about identity, about relationships, and about intimacy. Sexuality education encompasses sexual development and reproductive health, interpersonal relationships and affection, intimacy and body image and gender roles. Sexuality education addresses the biological, socio-cultural, psychological, and spiritual dimensions of sexuality. Now that's a lot of O's, but it's true. Socio-cultural, psychological, and spiritual dimensions of sexuality, from the cognitive domain of information, the affective domain of feelings and values and attitudes, and the behavioral domain, communication, decision-making, and other personal skills. So comprehensive sexuality education that is appropriate to age, development level, and cultural background is an important part of a religious education program for all ages, people of all ages. So sexuality education is a lifelong process, and because messages are coming from every direction, the question is, how do you filter through those cultural messages in order to make informed decisions about sex, about intimacy, and about our bodies? Here in Oklahoma, our cultural messages in Oklahoma are greatly influenced by the Christian church. The focus of the church, for the most part, throughout history, has been blanket propositions of behavior. Who you can marry and when, who you can have sex with whom and when it's appropriate, with no consideration whatsoever to the context or to the complexity of the individuals involved, nor, I might add, to their humanity. The traditional church has offered us blanket statements promoting shame and fear instead of celebrating God's life-giving and fulfilling gift that is to be shared with intention. That is the message that needs to come out of the church. The general message seems to suggest that on the one extreme, sex is the devil, and on the other extreme, hippie religious liberals see sex as God. Neither one is true. I'm here to tell you that there is indeed a dignified middle path where the church can recognize sexuality as central to our humanity, even as integral to our spirituality, because it is in essence one of the most vulnerable experiences that we have as human beings. There is a middle path for the church where the message is to celebrate the goodness of creation, including our bodies and our sexuality. There's a middle path for the church that can promote love and healing and restored relationships, honoring the responsibility and the accountability that comes with an intimate relationship. Where sexual sin might be recognized as when this sacred gift is abused or exploited.